All right, welcome everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this special called meeting. The time is now 6 o'clock, and I'll ask our Assistant City Recorder, Summer Sheldon, to call the roll for us.
Mayor Holly
Here.
Vice Mayor Stephanie Dalton.
Here.
Commissioner Jamie Fairbanks Harvey.
Here.
Commissioner Keith Phillips.
Present.
Commissioner Hayes Wilkinson.
Here.
Excellent. For today's invocation, please join me in a moment of silence as we reverently collect our thoughts, pray, and ready ourselves for this meeting and the duties to which we have been called. Thank you. Mr. Tate, will you please lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. I briefly want to address our city manager was not able to attend. He had a many months long planned visit with family on this evening. And of course, with this being a special called meeting, that was not part of our planned schedule of meetings. He had not cleared it on his schedule. So we wish him safe travels, and we have an excellent Director of Public Works, Mr. Greg Tate, standing in on the city manager's behalf. Thank you for being here, Mr. Tate. We have one item on our agenda tonight, and the rules of a special called meeting, and this is exactly why special called meetings exist, is to address time-sensitive matters that cannot wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting, which is the case here when we were talking about the school facilities plan, the county's proposed timeline, which is very short and very fast. And with the next school facilities meeting coming up tomorrow, we wanted to be able to discuss this as a board in advance of that meeting and bring them any new information that we might have. So that one and only item of business that we are authorized to discuss both as a board and for public comments that will be available after our discussion and before vote is the following. Discuss and potentially authorize via resolution for the city manager and the mayor to negotiate and commit the city to provide a substantial and direct financial incentive from the city of Red Bank to the Hamilton County Department of Education in order to facilitate the location, relocation, and construction of a public elementary school within the city limits of the city of Red Bank, Tennessee. Citizens will have an opportunity to speak on these items prior to the final vote. Mr. Tate, would you like to introduce the topic?
Yes, everyone is aware that Hamilton County, would you like me to read the resolution first? And just let it go.
Shall we read the resolution in its entirety or have some discussion? Do y'all have any?
Probably read it in its entirety so the public can hear it and then us discuss.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
Please.
Thank you, Mr. Tate. And this is a draft resolution that we can make modifications to during this meeting.
Okay, resolution number 23-1638, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of the City of Red Bank, Tennessee, to authorize the city manager and the mayor to offer and contract for substantive and significant financial incentives to the Hamilton County Department of Education in order to facilitate the location, relocation, construction, or reconstruction of elementary school within the city limits of the city of Red Bank, Tennessee. Whereas a school facilities plan recently announced and circulated by the Hamilton County Department of Education proposed, among other matters, closing the Alpine Crest Elementary School, the only remaining Hamilton County elementary school located in the city of Red Bank, and consolidating the same with other elementary schools in a location outside of the city of Red Bank. And whereas the city of Red Bank City Commission, and indeed the entire Red Bank community as a whole, have expressed deep interest in retaining an elementary school within the city of Red Bank, Tennessee. And whereas thus far several members of the school board members of the Hamilton County Commission, and representatives of the Department of Education have indicated that they are willing to pursue the possibility of keeping an elementary school facility located within the city limits of the city of Red Bank, only if the former Red Bank Middle School site is provided for such a school, and for the city of Red Bank to necessarily make a commitment to that effect within the near term next few weeks. And whereas it has been clearly communicated that if the former Red Bank Middle School site is not made available by the city of Red Bank, Tennessee, the plans of the Department of Education is to close Alpine Crest Elementary School and consolidate the same with other elementary schools located at the current site of the DuPont Elementary School in the Hickson community within the limits of the city of Chattanooga. And whereas the city of Red Bank is already committed and contractually obligated to an extensive planning process to discern, among other things, what is the best use of the former Red Bank Middle School site. Indeed, over the past several years, significant ongoing community conversations and involvement within the city of Red Bank has offered up a number of possible uses and combinations of uses for the site, none of which envision the use of same as an elementary school. And whereas the students to be served by the proposed Red Bank Elementary School facility would have a service attendance area that substantially serves the population of the city of Red Bank, Tennessee, but by no means exclusively, however, a large percentage of the students served by any such new elementary school, whether located within the city limits of the city of Red Bank and or the above referenced DuPont site, which would still be residents of the city of Red Bank, Tennessee. Now therefore be it resolved by the City Commission of the City of Red Bank, Tennessee, at a specially called meeting of the Commission at City Hall on Wednesday, December 13th, 2023, beginning at 6 p.m. as follows. Number one, that the city manager and mayor be, and they are hereby authorized to negotiate and offer a substantive and significant financial incentive not to exceed $1 million to the Hamilton County Department of Education and contract with the Hamilton County Department of Education in order to facilitate the location, relocation, construction, or reconstruction of an elementary school within the city limits of Red Bank on any of the currently owned or controlled school district sites in Red Bank, including, but not necessarily limited to, the former White Oak Elementary School site and the current Alpine Crest Elementary School site, and the current Red Bank Middle and High School campus and or any other properties located in the city of Red Bank, Tennessee, exclusive of the former Red Bank Middle School site. Number two, that the mayor and city manager be additionally authorized to offer and commit the city to execute necessary road improvements required to accommodate the project and which are all contiguous to any such new site and within the jurisdiction city limits of the city of Red Bank, Tennessee. These necessary road improvements are in addition to any negotiated amount in paragraph 1 above.
Thank you very much, Mr. Tate. Anything else you'd like to add before we begin our discussion? Anything else you'd like to add before we begin our discussion?
Not unless you have a question of me. Don't have anything to offer this time.
I expect we will have some questions as the progression continues. All right, we would like to begin. Sure, we all have lots of thoughts.
Oh, don't make me go first.
Do we want to kind of do a brief timeline recap just to kind of
Bring everybody up to speed.
Yeah.
Sure.
Um,
Our commissioners who have been duly serving as our representatives to the school board, would you like to bring us up to speed?
I'll try. We can try. So the proposed.
Volume back here. We're having trouble hearing y'all.
Bring your microphone closer.
Please.
Can you hear it now?
I can hear
Okay,
you.
we'll
I
be
can hear
close.
her.
Thank you, Scott.
The proposal was released by the county mayor's office on August the 17th. And our school board rep, Ben Connor, and County Commissioner David Sharp, very quickly thereafter hosted their own first community input meeting at the Red Bank Community Center, specifically around Alpine Crest. Then they ended up hosting other meetings at the other District 6 sites in Normal Park and Rivermont. And then there was a community meeting that was hosted by the school district on October the 4th, that was held at Red Bank Middle School. And that was to talk about that piece of the proposal, specifically about consolidating 3 of the 4 schools, Alpine Crest, Rivermont, DuPont, and Hickson Elementary, into one new school located at the DuPont site. And so those were all the community meetings. In addition to those, and I went to every single one of those. In addition to those, we also attended, Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey and I attended county commission meeting to present our resolution to the county commission, and also a school board meeting to present our resolution. There have also been 2 facilities committee meetings held by the school board on November 20th and November 27th. I believe you were at the one on the 20th, and I was at both of them. And then we, our mayor,
Commissioner Wilkinson was at the 20th.
yes, he was also present at that meeting. But just recently, the mayor, Ms. Johnson and Mr. Granum met with Dr. Robertson.
Commissioner David Sharp, Representative Ben
You're gonna
Connor,
have to lean into your microphone.
Representative Ben Connor. That's everybody.
And Commissioner Sharp, and had a meeting to discuss options beyond, or what all the options were that were on the table. We had also discussed an open meeting prior to that, what we were looking at as some options in our community to consider, so that we could be partners with the school district through this process, albeit a rushed process. And I think, go ahead.
School board member Ben Connor was here last week and laid out what the school board and county wished to proceed with the center land on Dayton Boulevard, or our children go to DuPont. And down the list, quite a bit was the White Oak property.
Yes, I think he stated numerous times throughout that, Mr. Connor did, that he was speculating as to how his fellow board members might be leaning, because they haven't actually, as a school board, come together to review any kind of more formal presentation of a plan after their committee meetings, or vote. They haven't voted on anything yet. And so, everything he said, he clarified that by saying he's speculating as to his fellow colleagues' opinions.
Which is all, since their board is subject to the same Open Meetings Act that we are, and we cannot discuss with any one other board member outside of a public meeting any matter of voting matter. Of course, he would have to speculate based on past conversations that they've had in open meetings, how he thought his colleagues may vote. So during our meeting that we had with Superintendent Dr. Justin Robertson, Representative Connor, and Commissioner Sharp, the reasons that were brought forth of why the city's preferred sites, as listed in our previous resolution presented to the school board, of the former White Oak Elementary site and the current Alpine Crest Elementary site, were not viable to the county, was because of additional costs associated with developing those sites into a new facility that would accommodate 600 to 800 students. In the case of the Alpine Crest site, they mentioned the displacement issue. They did not, in their opinion, think it was possible to construct a new 600 to 800 student facility while continuing to operate the existing facility. Therefore, it would necessitate relocating the students that are currently at Alpine Crest for at most likely 2 school years elsewhere, possibly temporary buildings at DuPont, in order to demolish the existing facility and rebuild a new facility at that site. And they did not consider that. They were concerned that the community would not support having their students displaced temporarily in order to have a long-term new school at that site, which is a possibility. There's also costs associated with relocating those students, of course, and accommodating them elsewhere. And the White Oak site was considered a more viable alternative, but still not, in the end, something that it sounded like the county was willing to consider, again, because of stated additional costs. So the site is not completely flat. It's got 3 tiers going down from the rear of the property to the front. And they stated that they would need a larger one-level area in order to construct the facility that they desired, and that earth-moving costs were prohibitive. That they would have to spend an amount of money on a school at one of those sites in Red Bank that would far exceed the amount that they're planning to spend at sites elsewhere in the county. And of course, we know the county's dollars are stretched thin, especially when it comes to schools, and they have a lot of needs to address for our entire county's student body population everywhere. So acknowledging that added expense that would be associated with the sites that are preferred by the city of Red Bank and its residents, according to the public input sessions that we've attended. That is why we have called this special called meeting here today, to discuss whether or not the city would like to cost share in one of those preferred sites in an effort to hope that the county will take those sites seriously as options. Is that bring us to this moment?
I believe so. And can I ask a follow-up to the comment that you made about the cost? Those were all just verbal statements. We were not provided with any actual data or cost estimates from the district.
No, and we were not provided with any hard numbers. These were perceptions of cost. I do believe they consulted with the person with the school district who specializes in construction regarding his opinion, but there was no numbers presented to the city. We did request that data if they had it, and we have not heard back. So they may not have those numbers. If they're not seriously considering these sites, then it possibly wouldn't make sense for them to pay for engineering studies to get the numbers. But if the city were to offer cost sharing, my hope would be that the county would at least find that worthwhile to explore what the added cost would be that they are anticipating with those sites, and whether or not the cost sharing offered by the city would be sufficient to offset those additional costs or not, which we don't know at this time. That's why we're talking about a nice round number here in this resolution, $1 million, because we have not been provided with the number that would actually be required. We don't know if the earth moving at the White Oak site, for example, would add $500,000 to the cost or $4 million to the cost of the construction site. But the city can responsibly offer $1 million. We have the funds available for that. Our population has overwhelmingly spoken up in support that they want to keep an elementary school in the city limits. So that is what we're here to discuss. I would like to also add that we have previously discussed at length the other option of the former Red Bank Middle School and High School site on Dayton Boulevard. And we have already authorized staff to direct our consultants to speed up our small area study and to add an educational use to the menu of options available to our populace to select from, and to tell us whether that's what they would want. The county has also told us that their timeline is so accelerated that they say that they would need a decision by January, which would not give us time to offer a robust public input process on that property. And this board has discussed previously in an open meeting that that is not something we're willing to sacrifice. We are committed to transparency and public input, especially where it comes to a 100-year decision of that property. And we have moved as far as we can in that direction. And that is not what today's meeting is about. We have concluded our discussion on offering the middle school property and how far we're willing to meet the county in that compromise. And today's agenda and resolution is, again, specifically about the potential of offering cost sharing in other sites, and even says exclusive of the former Red Bank Middle School site. Anything else we need to missed add cover.
In my discussion with, City Manager Granum, moving these funds from one place that's earmarked, and I understand that's been cleared to utilize these funds. But it's my concern that it's the additional cost, upward more than another $1 million that would be utilized for streets and the sidewalks.
Right.
Bonds or some type of issuance there, but it's additional money that we'll be funding.
The resolution does note that the substantive and significant financial incentive not to exceed 1 million. These, and then mentions in this item 2, these necessary road improvements are in addition to any negotiated amount in paragraph 1 above.
Yeah.
So yes, there is, this board has made it very clear from the beginning that we would accommodate any road improvements needed for any site in the Red Bank city limits. So that has always been on the table and in the discussion from day one. So item 2 on this resolution is just clarifying, because you're right, the road improvements could eat into that $1 million quite quickly. So really that's just clarifying, and this discussion is whether to add a cost sharing to the county on top of the road improvements we have always agreed to from day one.
That would potentially also, if I may, Mayor, include infrastructure improvements like sidewalks, crosswalks and
ramps.
things like that.
Complete streets.
Yeah, so, which are all things that we are looking at doing anyway, throughout our community. And, we'll be looking at through the comprehensive planning process anyway. So this isn't like we would be doing work on streets that we wouldn't be doing work on anyway, at some point in time,
Right.
and that are not inside of our city limits. These are specifically states that it would be, roadways only, connected to any potential school site that are inside city limits. So we would be making needed improvements anyway, potentially.
Right, and it would potentially prioritize a site adjacent to a potential future school that may have otherwise been further down the list of priorities. So obviously not having sidewalks on both sides of Dayton Boulevard, the entire length of it, it's hard to trump
Or
that.
even down one side on.
Yeah, that's true. The northern end not even having sidewalks on one side. That is generally a more pressing need than sidewalks in most neighborhoods, some of which are also needed. But once you put a school into the picture, especially a school at a new location, maybe where one wasn't before or one hasn't been for a long time, that could change the conversation and cause the sidewalk and other infrastructure needs in that vicinity to become more urgent.
Absolutely. I have a lot of other thoughts, but Commissioner Phillips, I think
Well,
you look like you would like to say something.
I'm probably going to have one of the most unpopular thoughts. Okay. The way I see it is the county and the school board have blown their leads in our yard, and they're wanting us to clean up the mess. And they own 84 acres right here inside the city of 6.5 miles. And if my calculations are correct, and they probably aren't, that there's 1.42 cents of every one of our citizens' tax dollars gets collected every year and goes straight to the school board, right? That's $9 million a year if my calculations are about correct, and they might not be. The county is the ones that are in charge of where they put the schools, and the school board votes on that. And they've kicked this in our yard and saying, and then we're sitting over here supposed to grovel at them and take our citizens another $1 million plus some and add that to the pot. And I just say that it's their fault. Us ditch dwellers, if I may say so, that are the ones that are paying the price for somebody else's maybe not liking the way everything's going around over here. And I'm just very uncomfortable with it. And I yield the floor. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you, Commissioner Phillips. And I think those are all fair points. Any lack of planning on the part of any other entity does not constitute the city's emergency.
Thank you.
And the DuPont site, in my mind, all of our students, the choice put before us is not the middle school property or $1 million to try to cost share in one of the other sites, or no school, or our students continuing to attend crumbling schools. The option, if we were to do nothing today, is that DuPont Elementary, that the county has stated to us, is that DuPont Elementary be rebuilt to accommodate 600 to 800 students, and about half of the students of Red Bank, those currently zoned Alpine Crest and Rivermont, so about the northern half of the city, because the southern half is zoned Red Bank Elementary. That's where I live. The northern half of our students would go to a brand new facility at the DuPont site, just a couple miles down the road. In my mind, that's not the worst case scenario.
Right.
I have to agree on that point. But the reason I'm here today is because so many people have impressed upon me how important it is to them that they want an elementary school in our city limits. And I feel it's my duty to exhaust every option to try to
And
work with the county to try to get the outcome desired by our residents. And I can definitely see how that could be. I see both sides of the
And I
issue.
would say every outcome within reason. I just don't think this is within reason, in my opinion. I would put infrastructure in. I would like to have roads. I would like to have a school in our city, but I'm not going to be held to hostage. And that's the way I feel. And when they tell us that it's our decision whether we do it or not, is not the truth. And that's all I got to say. It is not the truth. We would like to have a school here, but you cannot hold us hostage to have a school here.
And ultimately, it's not our decision.
It's not. I mean, we can sit away and give away tax dollars, but I don't think that is in the best interest of what we're supposed to steward our money here.
Can I ask you, Commissioner Phillips, is there a dollar amount, any dollar amount that you would feel comfortable
Well,
in cost sharing in one of these other sites?
yes, ma'am. It's a 1.42% that we're spending on our property taxes every year.
Noted, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I ask, I don't know, I don't think is it clarified in the resolution that this is $1 million of the American Rescue Plan Act funds, and that this is not $1 million from our general fund?
It is not clarified,
Okay,
and because the essence of the resolution is whether or not the money would be expended, which will be identified later by the commission.
oh, I see. Okay, so, well, then I guess I just said it. So.
But the city does have ARPA funds available that have been previously allocated, but have not been spent.
That's right.
So one potential source of funding would be the federal COVID relief, our ARPA funds that the city has already received and not yet spent.
And we had allocated toward potential facility improvements at our public works garage. But if I'm understanding correctly, and Mr. Tate, Ms. Johnson, maybe you can correct me if I'm not, but the assessment, the facility assessment that was recently completed, is still in the works, but the estimate is that it's going to be a few $1 million, multi-million-dollar improvements that are going to be needed. And so is that correct?
Yeah, preliminary numbers are coming in excess of $8 million for a brand new facility at our current site.
In excess of 1 million? 8 million. Okay, in excess of $8 million. So $1 million is not going to touch really what actually needs to be done to improve that facility and modernize it the way that it needs to be. And if you have not been to the Public Works Garage here in Red Bank, I encourage you to visit it, and you will understand why it's really important that even if we end up voting to, reallocate this $1 million, that we are going to have a discussion about a way to fund those facilities improvements that have been deferred for decades. So that's something that will definitely have to come up again, but I just wanted to bring that up. I wasn't sure if that was, I didn't really understand how we were talking about where the funds were coming from. So thank you for that, Mr. Stoltz. But, so that's what we're talking about is $1 million of potentially using $1 million of American Rescue Plan Act funds, reallocating them to this cost sharing proposal.
Right, and those ARPA funds were allocated 2 years ago, and it amounts to a windfall for the city. And we have tried to use those once in a generation, probably, funds as responsibly as we possibly can, and we've already made great headway in our stormwater infrastructure especially. And we have an assessment of our existing facilities going on right now, which is the first and very exciting to have an inventory of what our stormwater system really is and what it needs. That's just one of many things that we've done with the ARPA funds that have been allocated and have been spent. But they have not all been spent. And this, in my opinion, which we have different opinions,
No,
it would not,
understood.
it would not necessarily be an advisable way. Again, we represent the people who elected us. And again, because I've heard so many people impress so strongly upon me how important elementary school in the city limits is why I feel that using some funds, possibly ARPA funds, possibly up to $1 million, this number can also be negotiated, would be in line with what I'm hearing from the people of Red Bank.
And if I may, it's
Please.
still real money.
Yes.
It's
Oh,
not-
yes.
It's not monopoly money, so it's still real hard. $1 million is, that's 6 zeros.
It can go away if we
You
don't
know,
use it,
you know, no.
but
Yeah,
it's
but-
just as good being spent in one place as another. It buys.
Now that's up to open debate. Yes, ma'am. Yes.
The value of a dollar remains the same, or whatever
Right,
its
right.
source. I agree with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wilkinson, anything you want to add?
I agree with Commissioner Phillips in principle, but I think it's a conversation about where do we, as a community, put value. I mean, you know, I'm a parent, and I think that there are a lot of issues with the county plan. I don't think it's been fully vetted. I think that, you know, other options need to be explored, and I don't think that the county has put the same thought and diligence that we have into this. I know they're coming at it from a different perspective, so I think that, you know, there's a whole conversation about scale involved and whatever. But yeah, I mean, I think this is an olive branch of the sort. So yeah, I mean, I'm for it. I don't like it.
Hold your nose.
I have seen the public works building, and it needs help.
Yes, it's badly. We have many needs in our competing needs in our city that we have to balance and prioritize between, for sure.
If I may, to kind of piggyback off of what Commissioner Phillips said, I agree that I don't think that the county approaching us, I don't think that the county's approach to us has been done in the most professional and courteous manner that could have been done. And so I have many feelings about that, as I know that many of our residents do as well, because I have spoken with them. I think we all have. We've all heard and from and spoken with our residents and neighbors. I personally have more of an vested and personal interest attached to this conversation because my child is one of a few hundred that goes to Alpine Crest Elementary. And so this is very near and dear to my heart. I serve on the PTA. I have spent hundreds of hours volunteering in that school and on that campus. And so I have heard from those parents, from my fellow parents, one of whom is in this room with me right now, that you know, that school is really special to us. It's really special to our neighborhood. We have friends in here. My friend sitting here next to me who graduated from Alpine Crest Elementary many, many years ago. And
Easy now.
I'm sorry, I stuttered.
Hey, I'm proud that it was many, many years ago. It was built the year I was born, in fact, so it's old and I'm old.
Thank you. I stuttered and I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I didn't mean to. Okay. I thank you for your understanding. So we understand. We understand. I understand. I think more closely, I think more personally than a lot of folks here. But I still don't like feeling like we are being held hostage, so to speak, as to quote Commissioner Phillips, especially when it comes to the conversation around the former Red Bank Middle School property. The commitment that I made, and I know that Mayor Berry made, and I know that all of us subsequently have made, but in our campaigns in 2020, the commitment that we made to our constituents was a fully open and transparent and community engaged process around what happens at that property. Not the five of us, like what had been attempted by previous commission, not the five of us making a decision for our community about what that property should be. That is not up to us. It's owned by our residents and our neighbors and our taxpayers. We are five of those people, but we are not the only five voices that matter. And so it has been 3 long years for us to get to this point where we are finally engaging our community with the help of our hired consultant around comprehensive planning efforts and the small area study of that property. And for me, when I hear from our fellow colleagues in local government that they think that we should give up that transparent process because of their self-imposed timeline, it disappoints me because we should all be going about this the right way. And what I found very shocking today, earlier when I read the news, was that the county commission actually does feel that way, but only when it pertains to property that they get to make a decision on. There was an article by the Times Free Press. Let me make sure I'm quoting it properly. By David Floyd, Hamilton County officials likely premature to consider housing for homeless vets at McDonald Farm. There's an organization that has been approved to build a homeless housing and resource complex for homeless veterans in our community. Our community won over other sites across the nation. And they are asking for 100 acres out of 2,170 acres at the old McDonald Farm. And the response that they got from Dr. Highlander, County Commissioner, I'm all for what they're doing for homeless veterans. I'm all for it. I'm just not sure how soon we could be ready to be involved in that. From Commissioner Chip Baker, it's too soon to know whether the Freedom Homestead could fit on the land. His focus is on the best use. This was quoted, paraphrased about him. His focus is on the best use of the property, and at this stage, he's not sure if it would be a suitable spot for the campus. From Nathan Janeway, the county's Director of Development Services, it's too early for us to make any decisions on permanent structures that would go on the property. We just don't want to get ahead of ourselves. We want to do this right. We want to make sure that it benefits the community, benefits Hamilton County, and benefits the region. So if it's good enough for them to hold off on making a decision on only 100 acres out of 2,170, why is it not good enough for our community to do that for 12 acres in the heart of our city in 6.5 square miles that can never grow again? And I needed to bring that up because this process is so important to me personally, and I know to my colleagues as well, and to our staff who have worked so hard to get us to this point where we finally have finished the RFP, hired our consultant. They already got out at our Christmas parade, started engaging with our neighbors, but that's just the beginning. We are going to be engaged with our community members now, during, and at the end. And I am not okay with, I'm not okay with anyone taking that process away from us and our community's ability to make that decision for themselves. And that's why I am not willing or comfortable considering that property for an elementary school at this point in time. Not ever, but not at this point in time. And I have other things to say too. I have a lot of notes, but I would like to give my colleagues also the opportunity to speak further.
Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, would you?
I think it's unfortunate that the timeline is not matching, and we can speak up as we have to both bodies, and ultimately it's their decision.
I applaud the county for taking such a careful and measured approach towards the old McDonald farm, which I think is proportionately just as important 100-year decision for the county to make as our middle school property. And I hope that they take it every bit as seriously and do their due diligence on that property.
And I do have an addition. I do have a great niece that is currently at Alpine Crest. So another generation in that building on that property. And I've got lots of memories there, and it is a sweet campus, and it's been well tended, well loved, nurtured. It is a sad way to go, but they've closed Falling Water. They've reinvented Signal Mountain Middle. They just depends on how all of this works out as to how construction or reconstruction, redesigning, repurposing some of these properties may happen.
Well, again, I just think they're laying this at our feet. And I don't think that if we offered them $1 million or $2 million, it's going to change their one iota. So, you know, all I'm going to say is I'm going to put it right back at their feet. If they don't want to have a school here in our town, then it's up to them. Because it looks to me like the mayor and or the county mayor, not our mayor, but the county mayor has determined that they're going to close our school and they're going to build the place over at DuPont. That's pretty much the way it's going to go, like it or lump it. So, but don't lay it off on us.
I agree that the county is ultimately.
And we're not politicians. We're citizens, really. Okay, go
We're
ahead. I'm
neighbors.
sorry. We're neighbors.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not a politician.
I rue the day.
Obviously.
Commissioner Wilkinson.
I was just gonna ask, since last week, since your meeting with the county, have we received any additional communication? Has there been any sort of dialogue?
I was just in case, just scrolling through my email again to see if I had gotten any response. And I'm not seeing any to date. Now we did just send them that request very briefly, not that long ago. So they have not had that much time to gather that information, and it was quite an extensive list of information that we requested. Cost estimates for the Alpine Crest site, the White Oak site, the middle school site, and the DuPont site for comparison. And if they had the information available, we also asked for, more specific cost breakdown of the displacement cost for students at Alpine Crest, for example, the earth moving costs at White Oak. And they would probably need more time to gather that information than they've had, but I'm not seeing a response yet.
Okay, Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
So you're correct. They wouldn't necessarily have those additional costs. But how, in my mind, how can they even have a discussion about voting on a plan when they don't know how much any of it's going to cost?
That's a question worth asking, Vice Mayor.
And it has been asked. I've asked it at every single one of the community meetings. I spoke publicly at every single one, even the one in Normal Park in Rivermont, where I don't live. I ask the same questions. How this whole process really has been done backwards. The community engagement came after they already decided what was the best plan for these communities. There's no idea of funding. We have no idea where funding is coming from, how much funding is coming from the county commission. The data that the county is using for some of this conversation is from the MGT report. The data is from 2018, 2019, and in pre-COVID times. So we know that any of those cost estimates for their recommendations, which aren't necessarily completely matched up to what's in this current proposal, are not accurate at all. Those cost estimates will have to be revised. The other issue that I've had with this whole process in hindsight, now that I know this, when I discovered on November the 27th, when I was at the facilities committee meeting, and they're talking about keeping track of growth in our school communities and housing developments and permits and all of those things. And there is a gentleman with the district, Ben Coulter, who has been tracking that apparently. And when he was asked where he was getting that information from, he said he was getting it from RPA, the Regional Planning Agency. We do not partner with the Regional Planning Agency. We partner with Southeast Tennessee Development District. Guess who else partners with Southeast Tennessee Development District? Signal Mountain, Walden, Soddy Daisy. Collegedale doesn't even partner with anybody. They do all of their planning in-house. I asked Mr. Coulter if he was getting information from SETD, Southeast Tennessee Development District, and he said no. So how can they even know what schools are maybe going to be needed or are needed now? How can they project growth when they haven't been tracking growth in any of the communities north of the river? I have asked this question and I have gotten no answers. We also don't know what the school facility priorities are. They used to, I was informed by a former school board member, used to vote on these at the beginning of the year. They send it to the county commission and then they would use that to make their decisions as far as budgeting. That hasn't been done as far as I know. I wish Mr. Connor couldn't be here tonight. But I wish that we had somebody here from the school district, from Dr. Robertson's office, who could help us maybe answer some of these questions now. But I have asked most of these in a public meeting. So we don't even know what the priorities are. How can they just, I don't understand how they can vote on something like this when they don't even know what the cost comparisons are to do one project over another project and how to prioritize those things. We already know, they've already talked about this. Alpine Crest Elementary isn't even in as bad of shape as some of the other school needs that are being seen and talked about throughout the district. Rivermont in particular, unfortunately, is in pretty bad shape and something has to be done there. And that's been consistently spoken about by school board members and folks in the community, and even the principal herself. I spoke with Miss Evans and she said that herself, that something has to be done. As I said last week, I like to quote Mr. Perez, Marco Perez on the school board. He says that building is not worthy of those students. So something has to be done. We know that. That is not true for Alpine Crest. At this point in time, we know it's an aging facility. We know there's investment that needs to be made, but it is not in an emergency situation. It is very worthy of the students in that school and the staff and the teachers that have been there for decades and committed themselves there. I have another potential option that I would like to bring forward. And I'm sorry, I actually only just talked to Mr. Tate about this about less than 2 hours ago, because it was something that just hit me. It struck me today. And I don't know if this is a viable option, but I think that it's something that I wanted to talk with you all about to consider as a potential second option to offer to the school board, to the school district. The school board has already made it clear that they're not comfortable consolidating more than 2 schools together in their current population sizes. So what about consolidating Rivermont and DuPont students into a new facility on site at DuPont and keeping Alpine Crest open. The city could make a financial investment into Alpine Crest that would offset deferred maintenance costs for the school district. The same money that we are talking about this evening. We could potentially commit up to $1 million in the American Rescue Plan Act funds through as I talked with Mr. Tate about, through a 3-year outlay plan. We do have to spend these funds by December of 2026. This would allow us adequate time to go through our comprehensive planning and small area study processes the right way and have a better idea of how we need to incorporate an elementary school site into our city's long-range master plan. This is, in my mind, a true compromise, unlike how I feel like any of the other conversations have gone so far. 2 aging facilities, the one at Rivermont and the one at DuPont, are removed from the school district's inventory. A new and more cost-efficient facility is built on site at DuPont for the DuPont and Rivermont students. Alpine Crest stays open, and the city is, as I have to quote my commissioner down here at the end, and the city is putting some skin in the game by investing funds into deferred maintenance that the district wouldn't have to budget for. In my mind, this is potentially a viable option that we could discuss, and we could keep our school in Red Bank for now while we're planning and figuring out what next steps are, and taking time to do it the right way. So I will stop talking now and allow my colleagues to respond.
There will be an opportunity for public comment at the end, or prior to a vote.
I think there's some seats up here. Okay.
Yeah, please
I-
come have a seat. There are some
Yeah, I just don't want everybody to stand at their seats available.
Yes, we haven't even begun public comment yet. It may still go on for a while.
Well,
Get comfy.
And in all due respect and everything, if it was very important to the county, they'd be here. Okay, I mean, let's just put it, but there's a brass tacks. They would be here, and isn't it? And they've already. I'm just telling you, we're having this special meeting here, but the decision's been made. It looks like to me.
Well,
I mean, have you been to every school meeting, and have you heard any different? They're not over here supporting us,
I will say I did talk to Mr. Connor today, and he was very apologetic, but he had to coach girls basketball tonight.
it's his daughter's.
Ben's he's got his hands full.
Yes.
And he's made it a lot of meetings, Commissioner Sharp has, but I'm talking about the superintendent's not down here. Nobody from the county executive staff's down here. Am I mistaken? Anybody
No,
here?
That's correct.
All right, so I'm just telling you that they don't care. I hate to, because I'm not a politician, so I can say this stuff.
I think it's an opportunity for us to have this conversation with residents.
Well,
This is what means
That I would
to
agree with.
us.
I would agree with, but I'm just letting them know,
Right.
So,
I was to the vice mayor's point. Yeah, I don't dislike that idea at all. I think $1 million one way or the other is still $1 million. That one hits a little closer to home in that, to speak in metaphors here, the county has neglected to change the oil in the engine for a while, and now we're, fixing the whole motor, which
it's nothing new.
so, pick it like the way you kind of rationalize where you spend that money sort of hits a little different. But in essence, it does the same thing. So just kind of mulling that idea around a little bit.
I have mixed feelings about that proposal because I don't know what the total facilities needs are, what the cost associated with the facilities needs at Alpine Crest would be. I don't know that any amount of money necessarily would, short of a demo and rebuild, would solve the ADA issues that have been brought up several times with Alpine Crest. And I don't know how much time that money would buy us. How long would Alpine Crest remain open before we end up back in this conversation again? That being said, our Alpine Crest Elementary is absolutely beloved by all of the families that get to go there. It's a legacy to our community. The amount of volunteer hours that have been poured into the community over the decades is incalculable in value. And so it's very hard to put a dollar amount on, what would we be willing to sacrifice? Because this is a sacrifice. Like Commissioner Phillips says, if we're spending this money here, we're not spending it somewhere else. So this is an important conversation. How much are we willing to sacrifice to keep Alpine Crest as it is? In my mind, it's still preferable to have a new facility at that site if that's an option. But I would not necessarily be opposed to this consideration. That being said, to Commissioner Phillips' point again, we can make this offer and the county can say, take a walk. I mean, just because we make the offer doesn't mean that they're going to accept it or even consider it. It's just our olive branch.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's true. Go ahead.
It's interesting to kind of rationalize from kind of a conservation sort of view. We have a lot of private development coming in the North Chattanooga area. I work for an engineering firm, and I literally go to neighborhoods that have been recently constructed or are being constructed. And there are a lot in Hickson and just right outside of Red Bank even. So it's interesting to think about what could be done with that property there, and where do we put value? Do we put value on green space? Is it, there are some old trees there, lots of bird life, for better. It's not exactly a park, but it is open to the public. And I personally put a lot of value in that realm.
We want to talk about it from a conservation perspective. Of course, it could be, we could conserve our funds and use that towards a bid when and if the county has said that they intend to sell that property based on their default plan. Then this money could potentially go towards the purchase of some of that property. I don't think $1 million would buy all 17 acres, but if we're talking about conserving green space from an environmental perspective, there are still other options on the table too. But do we want to preserve the educational use at that site?
Yes, so to that point, that was, again, this just struck me. I was in my house doing dishes and it struck me, this idea. Because, and it is important to me personally, obviously. I did consult with our attorney, by the way, and there's no legal disclosure that I'm required to make. Despite the fact that my child does attend this school, because I'm not personally financially benefiting from any decision here. But for clarity, I do have a child that attends this school. But it is important to our community. We've heard that loudly. And for me, this potential investment over time, over the next 3 years, is an investment in our children. As Commissioner Sharp has said multiple times on the bench, specifically about Rivermont and the gym that they were supposed to get. We know that there are children in that facility right now that don't have all of the facilities that they need to really have a well-rounded educational experience. And even if we're going to close their school, we know it's not going to happen tomorrow. And as also Mr. Perez has said, we keep investing in those children while they're in that building. We don't stop investing just because maybe one day this project might finally happen and it will close eventually, maybe, possibly, right? So this to me is not an empty investment. This is an investment in our children today, the children that are currently in that building, in the staff that are in that building. And I'm seeing that we could, if you all are amenable to it, and Mr. Stoltz, maybe you can help me with this, but I'm thinking about I don't know if the resolution would have to be amended to like incorporate this as like one option and then, you know, spending it the other way as another option, and then they could choose, or if we would have to have two separate resolutions
Pretty limited in what you can do tonight, especially.
for amending, but we can't amend the resolution. That was,
You're really pretty limited, and from what I was hearing you say, I don't think you can do that to this existing resolution that's been published, because I perceive it to be a substantive change.
Let me read this briefly, because we have, the city manager and the mayor authorized to negotiate financial incentives not to exceed 1 million to the Hamilton County Department of Education and contract with the Hamilton County Department of Education in order to facilitate the location, relocation, construction, or reconstruction of an elementary school within the city limits of Red Bank. Would contributing funds to improve the existing structure, would that be able to fall under the word reconstruction?
Possibly that would be subject to a contract that would be negotiated, which the board would have to eventually approve or disapprove of.
At a later time. So you think that existing language of this resolution could potentially accommodate the vice mayor's idea?
Potentially, and then I think it would be most prudent to ratify it in the next regularly called meeting, which is only 7 days away.
Right.
And so it could be addressed more fully in the notice, in the regular the regular scheduled meeting and its agenda, which is typically published on Friday, which meets not only the requirements of our charter, but also the recently superimposed requirements regarding the language of matters to be voted on by the board.
Thank you, Mr. Stolz. Does anyone else want to add anything before we open the floor to public comments? I think we have probably a lot of folks that would have thoughts they'd like to share with us.
I think they've waited here an hour. I think, I
Very
pretty much
patiently.
said
We
my
thank you for
piece.
your patience.
Yeah.
All right, if the board has, nothing else they want to add, Mr. Tate, can I, ask you to read off the ground rules for public comment for us?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time for citizen comments. Please observe these rules for citizen comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes or less, and the city recorder will operate the timer visible. Actually, she's using a phone. Our timer went out, but the city recorder will operate the timer. Please respect her direction and conclude any comments when time expires. All citizen comments should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to a particular commissioner, city staff, or the audience. The commission is here to listen, not to respond or engage in back and forth. So please do not expect a reply during public comments. At this time, citizens are invited to the podium to comment. Please begin by stating your name and address.
And I will clarify that public comments are limited to the topic for today's agenda, which is, again, negotiating, committing the city to provide substantial and direct financial incentive for the city of Red Bank to Hamilton County Department of Education. You know the rest. So if you'd like to comment, please come up and give your name and address.
Sorry,
Yep.
Kathy Ryan. 5008 Charles Avenue. Good evening. Some of y'all know me, some of you don't. I am also serve on the PTA board at Alpine Crest. I'm a grandparent. Some of you may not know about the Master Gardeners. We've been there for quite a few years. You were talking about the benefit of the property. We are having an Arboretum certified It will be, I'd say, definitely certified and assigned up for it by May, which is another good reason to keep this property in the city of Red Bank, whether it's with the school or not. But I'm at the school all the time. I've been at the school Monday and Tuesday this week. The building is not falling down. It is such a wonderful environment. You guys just, you don't realize it unless you are there. The principal, the staff, I've met with the principal. We have a new principal and she's wonderful. Just the education that the children get there is just amazing. My daughter is the PTA president, so I know a few facts. The minority population there is 44%, and we're a level 5 school. You know, you can't duplicate that by just moving us somewhere else and split. If we got moved somewhere else, it would all be split up. It's not the same. I think you just really need to consider to, you know, do whatever you can to keep it in the city limits, keep it at Alpine. I know that's not the best solution, but as Stephanie was pointing out, that I like the idea of, you know, putting the two other schools together for now and doing what we can to keep Alpine in its present location. I think that would be a win-win for everybody. I've been over to the DuPont side, I've been to the Rivermont side, I've been to the White Oak side. There's nothing like Alpine. If you haven't been out there, you need to go check it out. And the PTA also did host the board members there last week. 5 of the board members came to look at the school. And, you know, I don't know what their thoughts were on it, but I'm just advocating for Alpine Crest from the PTA aspect and from the grandparents aspect and as one of the master gardeners. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank
Ryan.
My name's Alan Jolly, 3606 Oakland Terrace. My remarks will be brief. I appreciate y'all's efforts to keep a elementary school in Red Bank, and I would like to see that happen. I do think that we need to be good if we are going to give $1 million or some amount of money to facilitate that school being in Red Bank. We need to, in that contract, hopefully protect ourselves a little bit to say like, hey, if we're going to give you $1 million to build improvements on Alpine Crest, if you like close that school in the next 5 years, you have to refund us some amount of money or something like that. I don't know how all that, I'm not a lawyer, but I would hope that we don't just give them $1 million and say like, we really hope that like you keep this school. Because it doesn't sound like they are really treating us very well, really. So. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jolly.
We do have a pretty good attorney to help us with that.
I'm Mike Wood, 514 Cloudview Lane. I want to talk to the Hamilton County Department of Education because I agree with Mr. Phillips that how many cities are in our county and how many of those cities are giving $1 million for improvements of the schools other than the tax already are being paid for the Department of Education. I guess I can't ask you questions. He said I can't ask you questions, but there's a lot of cities in the Hamilton County, and I just curious which cities are giving $1 million for the new DuPont school.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wood.
Laurie DeWark, 225 Keypool Avenue. I don't think it's a mystery to anyone in this room that I am a supporter of having the full 12 plus acres on Dayton Boulevard reserved as a park for our community. There are many, many things about what Mayor Womp has been, his game has been these last few weeks. This is, if I remember correctly, the third plan that he has proposed with regards to our elementary schools. So the idea that we need to suddenly make some move after he's made it very clear he has no idea what he's doing. Why is it suddenly an emergency that we need to make this move? Number two, as the man who was up here before me pointed out, who else has the demand to pay extra taxes on top of what we already pay into our schools, just to have them make what I assume would be the most logical decision, which is to keep an elementary school in the vicinity of all the children that live in Red Bank. They may not feel that the two properties that they already own within our city limits are ideal, but life isn't ideal. And his childish games do not make him look like a strong leader. They make him look like a petty little tyrant. If for some reason we do cave to his little temper tantrum and give him those 12 acres, it better come with the stipulation that if they don't build an elementary school on it, they give it back to us with amends. Because if they get a hold of it and sell it off to developers, then we've got no one to blame for ourselves if we're not smart enough to put a stipulation in the contract. It's really frustrating that we have been targeted like this, because that's exactly what it is. We're being targeted by a certain group of people within Hamilton County who do not like that our community is standing up for ourselves. But they're just going to have to get used to it, because we are not going to sit down and shut up. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dworak.
Giselle Palmer, GIS, to Blue Pinehurst. First of all, I want to thank all of you for all that you do. I really appreciate your comments tonight. Each one of you made some really great points. I appreciate each one of you supporting the schools in Red Bank. I'm a teacher. I live in Red Bank. I teach in the city, and I just really appreciate you all, because I live in the Alpine Crest Zone, and so it's really important to me as a Red Bank citizen and a homeowner to have a school in Red Bank. I appreciate your creativity in trying to find a solution that would help keep a school here. And I also appreciate the transparency that we have here in Red Bank. I cannot tell you how grateful I am to be a citizen here. I talk to my parents and I say, this is what we're doing here in Red Bank, and this is what our leaders do to try to get input from the community. And they say, wow, that's great. That's so refreshing. And I just love the small town values that we have here in Red Bank. That is just, I really appreciate it. I also just want to encourage everyone here, everyone on the board, and everyone in the audience to please reach out to the school board and the school system. Their emails are public, and you know, I'm gonna go home. I've been sitting out here and thinking about ways to reach out to them, because they're going to be the school board are going to be the ones to make these decisions. You know, it's going to take 6 votes to make this decision, and you know, whatever they decide as a board. And I've been thinking about that. There are several people that understand how important it is to our community to have a school here in Red Bank. And there's some people on the fence. Some people have decided it doesn't matter, but there's some people on the fence. If we could convince them that, you know, it's important to have a school here, and that the city already, or the county already owns some properties, and they need to just, you know, bite the bullet and build on the property they already have, or make a deal with us, or whatever it is. You know, because even when I sat in the meeting, they said, if we want that property, we're going to have to be willing to do whatever Red Bank wants, whatever. Not Red Bank has to do whatever they want for us, whatever. I don't know, you know. And I understand. I appreciate that we've made a decision not to just turn over the property here at the last minute's notice, because I think that would break down the transparency here in Red Bank. So I appreciate all you guys and the hard work you do, because you don't get appreciated enough. but just know I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you.
I'm Andrea Abercrombie, 409 East Midvale Avenue.
She has a handout. Would y'all accept this?
This is what I'm reading, so.
Thank you.
I'm here on behalf of the Save Red Bank Central Park. And first of all, I'd like to say thank you for your transparency. That is so important to us, to all of us. And thank you for your hard work and time that you've invested in this. Our movement supports the reasonable measures by the city of Red Bank to keep an elementary school in our city limits, but not at the expense of a future Red Bank Central Park. We have followed this issue closely, acknowledged the complexity, and recognized many of the moving parts and trade-offs. However, we reject the false emergency imposed on Red Bank by the Hamilton County Board of Education, as well as the artificial and unreasonably urgent timeline demanded of Red Bank to make a monumental decision. Our movement fully supports a new elementary school in Red Bank at a site currently owned by HCDE. We likewise support reasonable efforts by the city to negotiate with and incentivize the county to agree to build a school inside our town. Meanwhile, we encourage the city to stay the course for ongoing long-term planning efforts for parks and recreation, the small area plan, and the comprehensive plan. But our support for an elementary school in Red Bank is not unlimited. Our movement opposes any attempt by the county or city officials to transfer the former Red Bank Middle School at 3715 Dayton Boulevard back to the county as the location of a new elementary school. That 12-acre property is owned by the city of Red Bank and our citizens, and the county has no standing to demand the city hand it over. Likewise, the city has no obligations to appease or surrender to the county's demands. So thank you, commissioners, for taking this item off the table, this option off the table. So we want to thank you, the Red Bank Board of Commissioners, for considering our views and for all you're trying to do in the best interest of Red Bank's future. And then I would like to say, as Andrea Abercrombie, when I moved to Red Bank over 10 years ago, I live in the White Oak Park neighborhood, and there was one child that I know of, you might correct me, Jamie, if I'm wrong, 10 years ago, one kid I know of in that neighborhood. And now I can count 30, minimum 30 that I know of in that neighborhood. And these kids are important, and they deserve our time and consideration, and not to be rushed into a decision because of somebody's lack of foresight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Abercrombie.
Kathy Lennon, 401 Christmas Street. First of all, I'd like to thank you all because I can tell that you all value education. You have all said how important it is to keep an elementary school in the city of Red Bank, and I agree 100%. I don't agree with the process that is happening right now. I think I stated it when the first meeting came. I don't think that it's fair to put it on you guys that it's your decision when, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't think this has even been brought up to the school board or discussion. It hasn't been voted on. So therefore, if it hasn't been voted on, we don't know if the school board even wants it, you know, and if they don't want it, it's a done deal. It shouldn't even be brought forth yet. It is budget season coming up, am I not correct? Pretty soon. It's a budget season for the school board. I sat on the school board for 4 years, so I know this. And every year, we come up with a budget. And who does it go to? Our county commissioners. And guess what? They don't accept it. It's too much. How in the blue blazes heaven are they going to be able to afford? Where is all this money coming from that we can build a school in Red Bank? We've got Rivermont, we've got Soddy Daisy, we've got Howard, we've got Calvin Donaldson. We have got schools that are in greater need than Alpine Crest. And I don't understand why that, where is the priority list that was done at the Hamilton County School Board and I did not go to a facilities meeting, so I don't know. But I don't know if you all saw, and I'm not supposed to ask questions, but maybe you all saw a priorities list. But I'd really like to know what that priorities list is, because that's how they vote on that and they make their decisions as to how they're gonna allocate their funding. And then, again, the county commissioners have to vote on it. So I think that it's kind of unfair for you guys right now, because you really can't, it's not your decision as far as this land swap deal if the whole school board doesn't know about it. And I don't think they know about it. It hasn't been brought up for discussion yet with them, from what I understand. And I applaud Ben Connor. He's been awesome. He's an advocate for education. He wants to keep the school in Red Bank, as well as David Char. But I don't think that it's fair that a land swap deal is brought forward to you all before it's ever been voted on at the school board. And then it has to go to the county commissioners. And do we know if they all vote on it? Do they agree on it? Or is it just because the mayor wants to do this? You know, I don't know, because I didn't go to all of those meetings, but I do understand how the school board functions, because I sat on there for 4 years, and I truly valued every moment that I sat on the school board, and I've learned so much. And I know this for a fact, they have to agree with it. Every one of them. And there's 12 members on the board now, so it has to be talked about. So with that, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Lennon.
Don McKenzie, 110 Brentwood Drive. Until tonight, I was not aware for sure that this commission had taken off the table the prospect of putting an elementary school at the old middle school site. Nothing could have delighted me more than to hear y'all make that statement tonight. So I thank you very much for taking that off the table for now in this elementary school discussion. I stand with the statement read earlier by Andrea Abercrombie regarding the former Red Bank Middle School site and Save Red Bank Central Park. I am concerned deeply, as y'all are, about the lack of data from the county on the cost of doing anything, anywhere in their proposal. When they are operating in the audacious manner that they are in our town and presumably others, that kind of brazenness raises suspicions in my mind when all they're working off of is rhetoric and not data. And it makes me question motives, motives that may go beyond just the welfare of the children in our county. My personal number one priority is Alpine Crest Elementary School at the current site. I appreciate Kathy Ryan's statement earlier. I work with her and others at that site volunteering as a master gardener, helping develop and maintain the trails and the gardens for the kids, working with the new forest kindergarten class there, which to me is one of the coolest things ever. And none of the other sites we've been talking about would be suitable for a forest kindergarten class. And that one can only get better as the master gardeners and others work to improve those grounds for that purpose, for even grades beyond just kindergarten, for outdoors education as part of their elementary education. I support the city's offer. Whatever the details end up being, I support that the city is putting skin in the game with money and infrastructure services. I personally question whether the county will take the city up on that offer. But in my mind, that's partly beside the point. The point is to demonstrate good faith on behalf of our city in the negotiation. And if the county walks, then that exposes their lack of good faith in a genuine negotiation about the fate of elementary schools in Red Bank. So thank you all for doing that. I support it and keep moving.
Thank you, Mr. McKenzie.
Michael McCain, 4200 Tacoma Avenue. I would wonder if possible legal action could be obtained to slow down this procedure. That's all I would ask.
Thank you, Mr. McCain.
Ann Wheeler, 427 Antelope Trail. I've heard many opinions. I agree with some, I disagree with some, and my famous word, compromise, but I agree with Commissioner Phillips wholeheartedly. We should not turn over property that's worth what the old middle school property is. I know there are fellow residents who call that our Central Park. It is not our Central Park. It is a piece of property owned by the city to determine what it should be. There are several residents who would like to see commercial, something that would bring in taxes, something that would take some of the tax burden off of the citizens. With a 63% tax increase over the past 2 years, I'd like to see new businesses brought in. I would think that we could at some point come to a mutual agreement as to how that property needs to be used and it not be drawn out forever. I personally think that if the city's looking at a park, the north end of Red Bank has nothing. And I'm saying nothing other than the Alpine Crest Playground. But as far as a park for residents all over the city to use, White Oak has the big White Oak Park. We have Stringer's Ridge. It's in the south end of Red Bank. But to take that huge piece of property that could be used as a productive, and when I say productive, financially productive area, if we as citizens could come to a mutual agreement as to how it should be used. But graduate of Alpine, 4 children that went to Alpine, many people right here in this room went to Alpine. We love Alpine Crest, but it is not handicap accessible, never has been, and I have no idea what the cost to bring it up to acceptable standards. That's not saying that the school's falling apart, but there are other schools, and somebody mentioned a priority list for the Hamilton County schools. There are other schools in this city older than Alpine that are falling apart. So there's so many things to look at, but please don't give away property that could be financially beneficial to Red Bank without spending tons of money on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wheeler.
Jane West, 110 Redwood. I guess it's no secret that I am a member of the Save Red Bank Central Park Group, which is my passion to save that as a park. I really, really appreciate, I know other people said it, but it does come from my heart, the work you put into it, the thought you put into this process, and not just rolling over and taking what the county wants. I would very, very much like to see a school in Red Bank, just not at the old middle school site. I taught for 30 years, and I taught at a school. When I started out, it had around 300 kids. By the time I finished, it had over 1,000. It was not the same. I taught the whole 1,000 kids, every one of them, and you just can't get to know everybody. It's not the family feel that you get with a smaller school. And I realize it's it's really not in your hands; it's the county's hands. But anyway, I just wanted to let you know how I feel.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. West.
My name is Cy Fuller, 208 P Street. Yeah, I'm coming from a park standpoint myself. I'd rather not see that space be used as a commercial venture. I believe we need more green spaces here in Red Bank anyway. Ideally, we do have a lot of places that we can, there's a lot of opportunity for businesses in Red Bank anyway, especially down Dayton Boulevard. A lot of that space is not being used to its utmost anyway. In my opinion, if we were going to improve Red Bank, make it look a little bit more appealing. Get rid of that eternal turn lane that's all the way down Dayton Boulevard. Maybe just turn it into a green space. Slow down Dayton Boulevard just a little bit, build a park. And, you know, that would go a long way to making Dayton Boulevard or Red Bank in general just more appealing. And with North Shore and all that growing out this way, with all the new businesses that are growing and the way that real estate is moving, you know, that's just more eye appeal. We'll get more people moving in. But the end result is, personally, you know, I think it should be made into a park for everybody to use in the city. And I believe that's personally the way I think we should go. So, thank you.
Mr. Fuller, you said? Sir?
Fuller, yes.
Fuller. Thank you, Mr. Fuller.
Rachel Oliver, 114 Clover. I have opinions about where I think the school should be built, but instead of talking about that, I wanted to talk about the new proposal from Vice Mayor Dalton. We're zoned where I live for Rivermont, and I feel like in all of these conversations, those kids really get left out of all of them. And when I hear the talk of Alpine, I'm in, I think it's awesome, but when I hear that proposal particularly, that leaves out all kids who are not able-bodied, and it leaves out all of the kids who are not zoned for Alpine to be sent to a school you're all trying to keep your kids from going to, which feels really unfair. So I just ask that any further or new proposals take into account all of the kids in Red Bank, and not just the ones in that particular zone who are able-bodied.
Thank you, Ms. Oliver.
Scott Harden, 328 Brownview Drive, citizen, taxpayer, property owner, disabled veteran. And I almost went to school almost as long as Commissioner Harvey did at Rivermont. They didn't have a gym, so that's just hearsay. You know, ever since the school system went from two systems to one, it's all been screwed up. When the city got out of the school system, and they had to go back and try to fix all the city schools that were screwed up. And then when the county got bigger, they had to go back to the county. They build more county schools. Everybody wants to have the little niche schools. Man, if you were at Normal Park over there, you'd want that school to be built. Besides, you know, everybody, and I know everybody wants to have community schooling, and that's a good idea. But I think the foregone conclusion, like Commissioner Phillips says, they're gonna build a school at Rivermont, at DuPont for Rivermont and Alpine Crest. I think you could put a roof on that building at Alpine Crest for $1 million. I don't believe so. So, I mean, it's just, you know, the county finds schools to build new schools, not to rebuild schools, fix schools, because it's in their budget. They think it's better use of money to build a new one than an old one. But remember, when you build a school, money's not set aside for libraries, playgrounds, or technology. That's extra. What I've heard when they come when they build a new school. And so now, you know, they went and they bought this Blue Cross building to the mayor wants to put Kirkman back down there, and that's a good idea. So when they said that, well, then the people up at the city, that's why I went to city one time. So whether it's art school or whatever, well, let's go down there and put it down there because that building's screwed up. Then when they said that, the people at Upper and Lower Normal Park said, well, hell, let's all move up there to city school. We want to move up there. Well, if that school is so bad that you have to move to another school, so I mean, the county doesn't know what they're going to do. I mean, they still don't know how much money it's going to cost to build the state because now they got all this environmental stuff. So, I mean, it's just, and I wouldn't give them $1,000. I'm going to give them $1 million. You know, I mean, I know it would be good. Everybody wants to keep school in Red Bank. I just don't think that's going to happen. It's foregone conclusion. That's not going to happen. And as far as the homeless, you know, why would you build a homeless camp? McDonald's, you know, 35 miles outside of school. I mean, outside of the city. You know, they moved the bus station, got a ride flying, and if you Uber from there to downtown, it's $87. So nobody cares about homeless anymore. It's just the way it is. So, and you know, if you use the property, and I talked the old high school area, if you use that for a park or put a school there, you won't be able to get an FAA grant because that's new Red Bank Airport where the kites fly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Harden.
My name's Link Spar. I live at 4541 McKay Hill Road. My kids went to Alpine. I taught at Red Bank High School for 15 years. I'm invested in this community. I think that we have a perfect place right now for a Alpine Crest Elementary, Alpine Rivermont Elementary at the old middle school, high school property. It's flat, it's accessible. You wouldn't have to change traffic patterns. You wouldn't have to demolish anything down there. And even though you all have already said that that's off the table, you need to keep an open mind because of the expense of it all. You own that property. And I think that if you squelch that idea and all the Red Bank kids, your son, all have to go across town over to DuPont to a mega school. Mega school, small environments are better for kids. You all know that. That's why all the private schools have a limit of 10 to 12 kids per classroom. They all have to go over there. It's going to be at your feet if you choose to have a park over a school. I hope it doesn't come to that. Maybe you can work something out at White Oak, but it would be at your feet. The three of you right there.
Thank you, Ms. Sparks.
David Scudder, 4810 Stag Road. My interest in investment in Red Bank stems from a strong belief in autonomy and self-determination. I see and commend the city for working toward these objectives through the development of a comprehensive city plan and engaging in a small area study of the former middle school site. These endeavors will allow Red Bank to shape our own future. The county has proven itself an unreliable and uncaring partner. WWTA's decade-long moratorium in our city center has put us behind in growth and development, resulting in an immeasurable opportunity cost to Red Bank, a burden to property tax and sewer fee payers alike that could have been prevented. The county's stewardship or lack thereof of its school facilities created a $1 billion facilities needs backlog. The county has manufactured crisis after crisis through its inability to properly fund what it must, essentials we've come to rely on for a functioning society. In addition to its track record, the county has made recent decisions that inspire little confidence in its future. A hasty facility consolidation plan, revoking nearly $1 million in ARPA funds to local nonprofits, stalling and revoking over $1 million in funds to Rivermont Elementary, granting exceptions to developers out of the very revenue source proposed to fund facilities, and the leadership of the county referring to us as an unmitigated disaster and run into a ditch. Despite all this, I've earnestly entertained the proposals put forth by the county and considered the implications. I've been told that big commercial developers follow the money and are attracted to new school facility expenditures. Can their developments not be profitable and desirable without public capital first? Is this not a subsidy? For all the grief I've given Rise Partners, they're moving forward with a tens of millions of dollars development in light of a 52% property tax rate increase and an increase in stormwater fees. I've been told that a new elementary school within the district would increase property values. Our home zone for Red Bank Elementary not valuable today? Are the residences neighboring our Central Park as is not more valuable now than previously? Where our children learn is understandably a deeply emotional issue. Alpine Crest has a strong sense of community. Do Red Bank students attending Red Bank Elementary outside of their district not also cherish their school community? Districting issues can be solved with pen and paper rather than brand new buildings. Let us not fall victim again to the mindset that would build Red Bank Elementary in Chattanooga. Stay true to our plans and forge ahead, shaping our future as we envision it. Let us tap into the spirit of Red Bank that has rolled up its sleeves and did for ourselves to create our own community center and Kids Corner playground, along with various buildings and properties that carry the names of Red Bank families. That being said, if the county moves forward with its own desires, I suggest the city investigate investing any funds discussed tonight or other possible revenue sources into securing Alpine Crest Elementary as an inclusive and accessible public or public charter school to ensure its can continue to serve our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bridges. Anyone else who would like to speak on, again, offering a substantial and direct financial incentive from the city of Red Bank to the Hamilton County Department of Education?
Jeff Price, and yeah, I agree with most everything said there. Actually, Pete, I'm with you, brother. And actually, all the comments were good. And I went to Alpine a long time ago too. Love it, great school. But the idea of giving them money, when y'all all said the behavior's bad, right? It's called blood money. Don't do it. It's a bad, slippery slope. It's not good to do. It's not good. I would pump the brakes on this. It's not wise.
Thank you, Mr. Price.
Not a citizen, but I teach at Alpine Crest, so I don't know if I can speak.
Give the Alpine Crest address as your workplace.
4700 Stag Road.
Your
Hi,
name.
my name is Amy, and I'm a teacher at Alpine Crest, and I know it is our school in our community. I also know that it's got a lot of problems. So I appreciate that you guys want to come up with a solution that works for the community. And I can see a solution in a multiple places in the community. I do think that it's valuable to get our community input and not be rushed into a decision. Some of my questions or thoughts were about committing funds for maintenance over years, because we know the school board has said like our maintenance budget per square foot is tiny. So I don't know if that would be more palpable for the community to invest in maintenance rather than like a big chunk of money. I also don't know if ARP funds can go into an endowment so that we have an endowment and then we're pulling funds from it to, make repairs and things like that. I just don't know if that is within the plan that is acceptable to spend things on. I think if the community wants a school on the property downtown, that's up to the community to decide. I do want to say that our elementary school, the middle school, and our high school in Red Bank don't have adequate performance spaces. I went to a school that had a performing arts center attached to it outside of Tennessee, and they were able to have that space available for student performances, but they also brought in guest artists, and they have movie nights for the community. So they have a way to generate revenue through that performance space. So I don't know if you could come up with some kind of agreement that the school is helping to generate some funds with something like that, or other ways to generate funds if the district is using that property. So that's all I have.
Thank you.
Any other public comments? Okay, if there are no more, then I'll close public comments and we'll come back for some more discussion of the board. How is everyone feeling? Do we want to include the maintenance plan or not? It sounds like it's negotiable within the language of our resolution, that we can fine tune that in the contract. And if this were to pass, I would present it tomorrow at the school board's next meeting. And Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, if you were available, of course, I know Vice Mayor Dalton is not available at that time. We would be presenting the body of this resolution, not necessarily any contract. We wouldn't bother with a contract unless the school board was interested, obviously. So that would give us opportunity to hash out finer details, like the Vice Mayor mentioned, at a future time. Outside of this vote. So the question still remains in front of us, whether or not to commit any funds and whether that amount should be $1 million or a different amount.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. I thought we were looking at her. I did just want to say that, in my conversations with the school board members that I have met with, individually, that when we talked about the city's, conversation starter for, potential investment from our end on maybe infrastructure improvements and things like that, or site prep, demolition cost sharing, things like that, that they were very receptive to that and said that that would be something that would be really hard for them to turn away. If we were actually committing funds, like committing to invest funds, that it would be very hard for them to just leave money on the table. That's from the school board members. So I would also just like to clarify that for me personally and my experiences, and I have met individually with these school board members as part of, Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey and I being the co-champions for this discussion, that I am not getting the sense that I think maybe seems to be broadly understood and felt by the community with how the county is treating us and approaching us. I am not getting that same sense from the school board members individually themselves. For me, it's definitely been coming more from an leadership administrative place within the school district as well as in the county government. So I don't want to, I don't know how to say this nicer, but I don't want to poo-poo, that was very loud, the school board members in their, before they've even had a real discussion about what the options are that are on the table. I guess that's all I want to say. I don't want to close down that conversation with them because ultimately Dr. Robertson is not the decision maker here. Weston Wamp County Mayor is not the decision maker here. It's our school board members and it's our county commissioners. So I just want us all to keep that in mind. That's my perspective.
The 4 school board members I've had conversations with, that was never discussed, but that never was an option until this has been in weeks ago. It was just the opportunities of where they, i.e. school board and county commission, were trying to decide where their best place would be for a school. With our input.
Right. We might need more than input. We might need money on the table.
Sure. Yeah. I think, that was what we were supposed to be talking with the school board members about, because we had talked about that in an open meeting about offering infrastructure, investment and things like that. And so that was what I had talked about with city staff. And that was what we were, tasked with, hey, have this conversation and see if they're receptive. And they were on my end, the ones that I spoke with. So, and I know, and I didn't speak with Mr. Connor directly about this at that time, but I know that he's our representative and I have spoken with him numerous other times, and know that he would be receptive to it as well. And I know that he, as Ms. Lennon said, is definitely a very strong advocate for our community and for public education in our community. So, in all of District 6. So I just don't want to maybe shut down the conversation with the school board members who are actually the decision makers before that they've had a chance to have that discussion.
Right. And the school board members are obviously not aware of this conversation because this is the first time it's happening.
Right.
But that would be, if we were to decide to go forward with this plan, that would be the purpose of going before the board tomorrow to inform them Of course, we would have wished to be able to go back and forth and talk to them first and make this offer and see whether they're interested before we discuss it. But with the timeline being accelerated as it is, somebody's got to make the first move on the board, and somebody has to start that conversation. And so that's why we're here today, to see if we want to be the ones to kick this off.
I do want to clarify one thing. When I did say that the county weren't here, I did not mean that Ben Connor and David Sharp, who have been here
Many times.
Plenty of times, but we've not seen anybody from the executive team. That's where I was going with that administration, nor from the thing. I know they met with you, but I'd appreciate to have them over here too. And I still saying they're dumping this in our lap. And I'm still not comfortable with using our tax dollars. So, but that's, I'm one vote.
And I see and appreciate your perspective for sure.
Thank you.
I did want to clarify a couple of public comments. We have not said that the middle school property is off the table, period. We have said that giving over the middle school property without a thorough public input process is off the table. And we are including that educational purpose is currently part of our small area plan. So we don't expect that based on what we've heard, that the county's timeline would be compatible with that input process. There's also obviously no guarantee that an educational use would be the desired outcome of our population for that property. So we can't make any promises to the county at this time, which is what they're asking for, and that we can't give them. So I just wanted to clarify that briefly. I also wanted to clarify that, again, the alternative that the county has proposed, I asked for a specific clarification, and I was assured that if they were to build a new facility at the DuPont site, it would not be a mega school. They are aiming for a facility that would accommodate 600 to 800 students at all of their new elementary schools that they're considering across the county. So as long as they hold to their word, which that has not changed that I've heard, then the DuPont site would still be a 600 to 800 student campus. That is twice the size of the current Alpine Crest campus. But that is why I have misgivings about how long we could keep Alpine Crest open if the county's long-term intentions are to have schools that size. But DuPont would not be a mega school if that were to be the eventual outcome, I have been assured by county staff.
Can I just
Go ahead.
piggyback on that? I would
Yes.
say that's also what the school board members have talked about publicly together, that they're looking at the 600 to 800 range, and they have currently in the district, I think, if I'm remembering correctly, 4 elementary schools that are over that 800 number, and they are looking to address that through rezoning, a new school, whatever needs to happen. So I have heard that publicly discussed and committed to by school board members as well. I wanted to also clarify a further point about the former Red Bank Middle School site, if I may. It hasn't been decided to be anything at all. It hasn't been decided to be a park. It hasn't been decided to be mixed use. It hasn't been decided to be a school, because we haven't decided that, because you all haven't decided that. So I just wanted to clarify that for anybody who's confused about that. That's what this whole comprehensive planning process and small area study process is meant to achieve, is you all let us know what's going to go there.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I think we're approaching a point where we should call a vote soon. Does anyone have any final thoughts or statements that they'd like to make? Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, how are you feeling about this proposal?
Uncomfortable, but it's put us in a spot where the timeline is skewed.
Is there a dollar amount at which you would feel more comfortable?
No.
Okay. Anything else? Commissioner Wilkinson?
Nothing new to add. No.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
I just want to ask about, again, for clarification on, in my mind, I wasn't thinking of the new option that I brought forward as being like the only option that we present to the school board, that it would be, you know, one of two options. So the option perhaps that's in the resolution, contained in the resolution, I think the intent behind that, and then that would be an additional option for them to consider. So I don't know if that's something, is that something that we can make an amendment for, that's all contained in this one resolution, Mr. Stoltz?
The concept, as I understood, the way you expressed it, would be subsumed under the broad tent of the negotiating a contract.
At a later date.
Oh, I see. So we wouldn't have to actually amend anything.
No, but I'm sure the mayor and the city manager would appreciate clarification at a regular agenda and a regular meeting. If that's what is to be the aim or the goal.
Okay, so I guess I'm just thinking if we vote on this tonight and it passes and you and perhaps you, Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, go and present this information and would give some context around what we discussed. Is that the plan?
Would that be appropriate, Mr. Stoltz?
It would be appropriate if defined and honed further in a regular meeting. But you would have enough to go and present the overall concept, which is to add a financial incentive to accomplish this broad purpose of keeping a school in the city.
Okay.
Keeping or constructing a school in the city.
Are you satisfied with that clarification?
Okay.
Okay. All right, is there any further thoughts or comments from the board before we call a vote? All right, I think the time has come then. This is a resolution, so it only needs a simple vote. Am I correct, Mr. Stoltz?
We need a motion.
That's right, I do. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I'll move.
We have a motion from Commissioner Wilkinson. Do we have a second?
I will second.
We have a second from Vice Mayor Dalton. Any further discussion? We've already taken citizen comments. That being the case, all in favor say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay?
Nay.
Nay. Motion carries. Thank you all.
Do we need a motion to adjourn?
Both, yes. That's a very good point. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'll move.
We have a motion from Commissioner B. Phillips. Do I hear a second?
I'll second.
We have a second. Sorry. From Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Meeting adjourned. Thank you,
Is that meeting-
Parliamentarian Vice Mayor Stephanie Johnson.
Is the meeting at 4:30 or 6 tomorrow?
So you have to be there at 4 to
Oh,
sign
good
up
work.
for public
I
comments.
know.
And so we'll sign up, like email ahead of time.
I'm like-
I'm